welcome to today's episode of the For the Joy Missionary Show. I'm your host, Jill Simons. Today's going to be a little different than normal. I have no guest today. It's just going to be me. And I am so excited to share with you a little bit about kind of how this podcast and show fit into the larger mission of what we're doing at Pink Salt Riot and something really exciting that we are planting here in our hometown of Tulsa right now. So to start, you guys probably could do the spiel with me now about joy and how our company exists to equip joy missionaries. We are here to not only give you the products through our physical products that we have in our shop for sale, but also through the formation and education that you need to actually live a joyful life. Because I think what happens so often is that we follow people who live joyful lives. We buy things that are pretty because we'd like our life to look like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. But so often there's this disconnect. We have kind of the vision and we see people with the end result, but we are where we are in our lives, and that might be a place where we feel like joy is really far from our reality. We feel like joy is really unattainable maybe. And when we're struggling in that place of feeling like joy is not attainable, those people that have joy and those joyful things that we might have attempted to fill our lives with can almost become a source of shame. And it can become a situation where we feel like we've done something wrong because we don't have the joy that we feel like we've been pursuing. We've been following the people, we've been buying the things, and we've been praying a lot of times for many of those that follow along with me here. We are not strangers to the Lord. We spend time with him. And maybe that's something that you're working on growing in. We can all afford to grow on that front. But I think that by and large, the people that I talk to so often, the effort is there. And yet, so often, the joy is not. What is going on here? And what is going on is that we are not going to fall into joy. It's not going to just happen to us magically. Sometimes it does. Sometimes we will come across a situation in our life, a circumstance in our life that is just incredibly joyful. We go to weddings, we go to baby showers, we get to be with a new baby, we get to be with someone that we love, and that's an experience defined by joy without anything added to it. But what happens when there's a loss? What happens when there's a relocation? What happens when there's a suffering that we didn't plan for? Joy doesn't just happen in those situations. Even, I will argue, if you are a person who is making time for prayer. Now, this is something that the Lord can educate us in, but it's also important for us to educate ourselves. I tell this story over and over again of this man obviously it's just an anecdotal story of a man in a hurricane, and they are getting ready to evacuate his town, and people ask him, do you want to come with us? Do you want to evacuate with us? And he says, no, the Lord will save me. And they say, okay, you can stay. So he stays, and it starts to flood. And so he goes up into the second floor of his house, and someone comes to see if they can help him in a boat. And he says, no, I'm waiting on the Lord to save me. And they say, all right, you do you. And they go away again, and the waters continue to rise. And before long, he's up on his roof, and someone comes in a helicopter and says, sir, can we help you? And he says, no, I'm waiting on the Lord to save me. And in the end, he ends up not being saved here on earth. And he gets to heaven and says to God, where were you? Why didn't you save me? And God says, I don't know what else you wanted me to do. I sent the evacuation workers, I sent the boat, I sent the helicopter. And I tell that story because I think that's what happens so often with joy, where we are waiting, we're saying, when, Lord, when are you going to give us joy? And we say, I'm waiting on the Lord to give me joy. When, Lord, when are you going to come and bring this joy? When we are so often overlooking the means to joy that might seem not spiritual enough or too ordinary to really be what you're supposed to do. And I think that that is where there's actually a lot of danger for us, because we can become bitter and we can become resentful because we feel like we're waiting forever for something that's not going to come. And it's not that it's something that's not going to come. It's not that it's not something that God has for us, but it's something that we have to take a more active role in. We absolutely know and believe beyond a shadow of a doubt that our God can do miracles, but that does not mean that he is going to just, poof, miracle, poof, miracle, poof, miracle all the time. He has shown us throughout the course of human history that his primary means of moving is in the ordinary everyday actions of men and women who are his hands and feet in the world. That is how God moves the vast majority of the time. Not because he can't do something else, but because there's something for us in the pursuit of those things through ordinary human means. When we are growing in discipline, when we're growing in virtue, when we are building these skills into our hearts and our lives that allow us to become more joyful people. And so part of what Pink Salt Riot does is we really want to encourage you in your spiritual walk, in your spiritual life, but we also want to encourage you in the human part of your life, not that they're separate, but in the ordinary everyday actions that you take that are the foundation for joy in your life. And those things don't necessarily look like, praying 150 prayers a day or reading an entire book of the Bible every day or reading the Bible in a year or anything like that. The ordinary everyday actions of joy are to be aware of why and where we don't have joy and intentionally address them. It seems really simple and straightforward and maybe too easy, but it's not. It's not easy. You've tried it. You know that it's not easy. It's something that takes intentional work. And so sometimes, I know this for myself, sometimes it seems easier to say, oh God, you just do it. You bring me joy. You show me the path to joy. You just pave it for me. But that's kind of the lazy attitude sometimes. Sometimes we need to say, Lord, I would like to be more joyful. Be with me in the road of persisting to that pursuit. And that's when we have this opportunity to grow in self-discipline. That's when we have this opportunity to grow in hope. All of these things that we know are good virtues to have. And so if we are doing something that allows us to intentionally grow in them, that's a good thing. And so that is why we're all about the pursuit of joy. We're all about walking with you in the pursuit of joy and giving you tools so that it's not just inspirational. I don't want to just show you, my life and make it look so joyful and, oh my goodness, don't you wish you were me? No, you don't. You wish you were you. I want you to be you. I'm the only person who's supposed to be me. And there's zero benefit to people just wanting what I have because I've presented it well. Because I have the exact same messy, tumultuous life with suffering and everything else that you do. It's no different. I just have a different call, a different path than you do, just like you have a different call and a different path than me. And in realizing that our role really as a company is not to give you aspirations like maybe someday I can imagine this would happen, but to give you tools for formation, to say, you want a more joyful life? Here is something to try. Here is something to do. Here is the story of a person who might be going through something similar to what you are. That's what we do here on the show on our weekly basis when we have our guests in the studio with us. And that's what we try and do on social media, in our weekly emails, all kinds of places. So if you don't already get our emails, I really encourage you to sign up. You can click on the link in the show notes just down below, and you can be able to get those Tuesday morning emails from us right when our podcast comes out. We share that podcast link. We also share reflections on a weekly basis. And we kind of have a topic for the month that we really dive into with joy. And it's funny because a lot of times our joy emails are about the hardest things in life. because that is the difference between joy and happiness. Joy is the emotion that can go into the fire with you. Joy is something that is not going to melt or fade away if it is correctly formed in you. And so having well-formed joy is the best tool that you can have to really embrace what God has for you in those times of suffering and those times of hardship. So that is what we're doing on kind of across the board here at Pink Salt Riot. And then obviously our products come alongside this mission in allowing you to have these sort of physical manifestations of this journey you're going on internally. And our gem collection and other places, we have little phrases and words that are really the outside reminder of what is your intention to nurture internally, so that as you go throughout your day, especially on rings and bracelets, you can see that, or if you're wearing it on a necklace, you can feel that and remember what it says. If you're a necklace player, that's what I do too. I love to just play with the necklace that I'm wearing. And when I do that, I think about how what it says was really my intention going into the day. So I hope you'll follow along with us for this whole kind of gamut of things that we're offering on the front of joy. And I also want to share with you about something really beautiful and just God ordained that we're doing about joy here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where we are based. We are opening an incredible space at the beginning of August. It's called the Riot House at 12th and Peoria in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We would love to have you visit if you are local or able or willing to make the drive. But our space will be a joint retail and event space. And if you see it, you'll be like, event space, really? It's not huge, but that's because we don't want to just do large group gatherings. We want to do small intentional groups of people. And so in our space, we're going to be not only offering Pink Salt Riot products for sale on a regular basis to those in our city and those nearby, we're also going to be putting together events where people are able to connect across church lines. So many of you know that I and a lot of the people that I work with are Catholic, but we are looking for the Riot House to be a space that is really just a meeting of the minds of people that love Jesus. And that is absolutely not limited to Catholics. We are going to be reaching out to parishes and churches of all denominations all across Tulsa and the surrounding area to talk with them about how we can bring people together and how we can create a space in the midst of this just disaster climate in our country and our world where that says if you disagree about anything, then you can't share anything. And we're going to be talking about how we can really challenge that narrative right here in our city by creating opportunities and spaces where people that love Jesus across other lines, denominational lines, or whatever the case might be, ethnic lines, etc., can really come together and experience each other, experience the truth of who God is that is revealed in the unique person in front of them. And something that I have in my mind as I build this space is this idea of the gift of presence, and where people can really give the gift of presence to each other. So we are going to be hosting mini retreats on Saturday mornings. Our hope is to offer at least one a month, if not more. And we'll see in the first few months kind of how that plays out, but we will post our schedule on our website. And we will also share those things with you here on the podcast if you are close by, so that you can join us for those events. We will also be having small intentional Joy Pod communities. We have Joy Pod communities online for our women all over the world that follow Pink Salt Riot, but we're also going to have Joy Pod communities right here in Tulsa that meet in person every 2 weeks and are able to walk through life intentionally together in that pursuit of joy. That's kind of our highest level of formation for people that are really looking to take this whole idea in hand and really intentionally pursue joy in a big way. So our current opening date is August 7th, and I cannot wait to welcome the world, especially our small world here in Tulsa, into this space and into this idea of challenging the narrative about how and who we can connect with. So please pray for us no matter where you live. If you are supporting Pink Salt Riot, you are supporting this mission of the Riot House. And I cannot thank you for that enough, whether you are a podcast subscriber or a buyer or a subscriber on YouTube. Wherever you are, whatever way you are involved, it helps build the mission. It helps build the visibility of the mission. And anytime you encourage others to subscribe, to follow us, to get our emails, to shop in our store, that spreads this mission further. And that is how we can spread this idea of being a joy missionary to a larger and larger group of people. It is only in cooperation. It is only in community. It is only in being a riot together that rises up to peacefully begin this conversation about how things can and should be different. So I'm so happy that you are along for the ride with me. I hope that you've enjoyed this little peek behind the curtain, and I cannot wait to share with you more about the Riot House as time goes on. The week of our opening, I'm going to have another special episode of our podcast for you where I am going to share about the incredible story of how God took a dream at one time in my life that I really had to grieve and gave it back to me at another time in my life in his perfect timing. So I can't wait to share that episode with you. And I look forward to sharing even more about the Riot House with you as time moves on.